Okay, so welcome everybody to this legal session. We are here with two amazing people, Lex and Gail from CASP, a Climate Action Support Pathway. My name is Dora and I work in the relationships team with Animal Rebellion. We are working on our September campaign, which I think what brought you into this session, and we would really like to equip you with all the important notes on the legal consequences of taking actions, but as well as the empowering part of taking actions with the help of the CASP team. And I would like to pass it on to you, Lex and Gail, to just introduce yourself and get started. And thanks so much for coming and helping us with this.
Thank you. Thanks so much. It's a pleasure. Hi, everyone. I'll let Lex introduce herself first, and then I'll introduce me, and we'll make a start because we deliver this session together. Lex.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's so nice to see so many people on these Animal Rebellion calls. Thank you everyone for joining. I just love seeing this many people here. It just makes me feel good. Anyway, so I'm Lex. I work at CASP, so Climate Action Support Pathway. We're quite new, so you might not have heard of us before, but we are here to support everyone who joins the resistance for the sake of our planet, whether it is, animals, against oil, against fracking, for the oceans, whatever it is, we're here. And we're going to support you. So yeah, I'm the one with the legal background. Not really a fan of it, but I have the knowledge. So yeah, I'm here to help you out with that. And then to Gail.
Thank you, Lex. Second all of that. It's great to see you, and lovely when we get a good turnout. CASP, Climate Action Support Pathway, as Lex said, is a neutral entity. So we are here to support anyone who comes forward in the name of any aspect of climate change. And as Lex said, the animals are one of our faves. So well done and thank you. And it's gorgeous to see you all. The structure of our session this evening, just to give you an overview so you know what to expect, is that we're going to talk a little bit about what CASP does and why it might be slightly different. It is new, and our aim is to support you every step of the way. So we'll just expand a little bit on that. And then we're going to talk about collective power and acting as part of a civil resistance community. And that will make sense when we talk about the neutral entity that is CASP and why it frames, if you like, the next part of the session after that, which is the legal consequences of the action that you might decide to take. And when we've taken you through that, and our format for that is very particular, we talk through what the likely charges would be, and we will touch upon the difference between arrest and charge. And then we talk through what the full power of the law might be able to hand down. And then we position it, because we're rooted in protest, and we position it based on the data that we have around what typically happens to activists in the vein and the manner of what we're looking to achieve, which is very different and hopefully will be very reassuring. And then at the end, we will very much look to signpost you to other sessions and other aspects of support that are available to you throughout the process of preparing for action, taking action, and everything that may or may not happen afterwards. And we're here for you completely on that. If there are any questions at the end, and if we do have time, then we kind of limit them to where do I go for, rather than this is me, just to keep the content relevant. If we start going down the rabbit warrens of personal details and circumstances, then it's less interesting for others potentially. And we have lots and lots of available time and available medium to be able to be in touch with everybody individually. So we'll be able to signpost you and expand on what's available to you all at the end. So So Climate Action Support Pathway, we have something of everything. And if we don't, ask for it and we'll get it for you. But basically, just so that you know, here, this is our legal consequences element to it. But we offer through directly ourselves and through our associate groups, all kinds of emotional support, practical and informational support, and also financial support to anyone who comes forward in the name of climate change, whatever that looks like. And that infrastructure is there and available from right now. Here you are receiving this, but we do have very emotional and physical sessions that prepare you to ground and get into the mindset of taking action and the mindset of civil resistance. We also have many aspects in which you can get in touch with us with regard to personal support, legal support, any questions or queries that you have about the process. We've got videos, we've got direct sessions about arrest, about injunctions, which are less relevant here, and assets, and should it come to court cases, self-representation, flat pack defences. We can help you with the lot. The key thing is that you know how to get in touch with us, and we'll make sure that you leave this session with that at any point in the future. We'll have someone, should you go to court, with you to go to court. We'll also have someone to greet you outside of any police station, outside of any courtroom. We'll be there afterwards, and we can talk to you about support and defences, as well as any of the financial consequences that may or may not result. We are dependent on crowdfunding and on fundraising directly from entities that look to support us, but where we can support people in need, that's absolutely what we're here to do, end to end and beyond. With lots of offerings in between. So we'll post a document later that gives you all the signpost into that. And a big part of the origins of CASP is because there are many groups now who take action for different reasons. And ultimately, what we're creating, whether we like it or not, whether there's a win or not, whether we succeed or chip away, or whether there's one big win, what we're effectively building is one big community. We've all chosen to find ourselves in civil resistance. We've all probably signed heaps of petitions, written letters, gone to hustings, letters to the editor, whatever it is that we've done, voted where we thought the vote would be most useful. And we haven't seen a satisfactory outcome to that so far. And so where that leaves us is that we decide to step up potentially and take action, or at least support someone else who does. And these sessions, by the way, are also for loved ones and friends and anyone who looks to support within or outside of the movement. We're very open, with nothing to hide. We're quite happy to share and to talk to anyone who needs that support, because they're all part of our community, and everyone, whether we like it or not, is in civil resistance. And the reason why we've got this, I get told off for calling it a vegan sausage machine of love, is because it literally goes from one end of the process right through to the other, turns into a bratwurst, and it comes right round to the beginning again. We wrap our arms around all of this community because we stand together in a sense of civil resistance. And that means we're there to support each other. It means that we're there to carry each other through, and it also beds down a way for us to be together and to connect for whatever the future looks like that we face together. And that's why CASP supports from one end to the other and beyond. So to couch what comes next as part of our community, and the reason why we want to support so thoroughly is because together, all of the different groups that take action, all of the ways that for want of a better word, Overton window are being shifted, or that in layman's terms or in more explanatory terms, the way that gradually everyone gets more and more used to thinking about taking action. You might never have stood in a road with a flag before, and all of a sudden you find yourself sitting down and potentially being arrested. And that takes a shift. And there are many more of us now shifting along that spectrum. And as we shift and as we push boundaries together, And we're encouraged by each other, and we're encouraged in our numbers that, well, if they can do that, I can do that. And what that means in our community is that we start to push the state. And that is part of our intention. We're asking for legislative change. We're asking for cultural change. We're asking for political change. But the way that we're doing this by standing in resistance is that we are pushing, we are flicking, we are irritating, and we are poking the bear. And what that means when we stand together in our collective power, I've tried to poke the bear with my letters and with my petitions and things like that. But when we come together and we do actions like this, then we start to push the state into a state of dilemma. And that is exactly what we want, but there are consequences to doing that. And particularly as more and more people from different coalition type angles come together under the same banner, but from different angles and for different reasons, the state feels that collective pressure because it comes from collective power. And that means we've got more power than we actually realize. And the state gets put into a dilemma when it sees that more and more people are coming. More and more people are going to do this. And somehow the state has to avoid the dilemma situation. The dilemma situation being, these people are causing disruption. These people are causing economic pain. These people are being an irritant or disrupting the public or whatever it is. And we as the state are expected to do something about it. And the state really at that point has two options. In order to put a stop to whatever disruption there is, they have to act. They have to do something. And that triggers them into a state of response which actually risks backfire. They know this. They know if they start to come down in a heavy-handed way, hauling people off, taking them to court, potentially escalating fines or even remand or even prison, then what they know that they risk is a backfire in social media, amongst the public, in the media and the press itself. They've suddenly got to start to report what is going on, which the state don't really want, because what that means is that it starts to mobilize people. That collective sense of outrage when people watch people like them being manhandled in the street means that they mobilize those people to get involved or to read about or to express an interest in what's going on and why. So the state can go down that route, or the state has another option, which we have typically seen in sites of rebellion, where there has been a deal of occupation, and then gradually it kind of dissipates, and after a period of time the police might come in and make some arrests. And that is them largely kind of hoping for it to dissipate all by itself and to sort of to disappear gradually. And then the dilemma dissolves with their lack of action. But of course, if it started like this, we could go heavy-handed or we could do nothing. The more and more and more that people come, the less of an option it is to do nothing. And the more likely they are to respond, which is actually what we want, but it's not without consequence. And what we've seen recently is a diluted version of that being attempted by the state. And this has been through things like state invoked or MP invoked. MP on Twitter actually says to a private entity, a private limited company, why don't you take out an injunction? Because that will escalate the penalties that activists would usually get for sitting in the road. So through the Insulate Britain campaign and also the Just Stop Oil campaign, that's exactly what happened. A bit of creative new legislation to try and tackle people. We've also seen the police crime and sentencing bill that came through, that was given royal assent in May. That has meant that for certain, dyed in the wool activist things to do, like sitting in a road and dropping banners and stuff like that, that some of the penalties have been slightly escalated. haven't seen an awful lot of that actually come to fruition, but by virtue of doing it, they're trying to position a threat and a deterrent. And that is them trying to avoid that heavy-handed response. It's also important to say that when we go through the next part, which Lex will take us through, of what the legal consequences could be to any action that happens, is that on occasion, in an attempt to act as a deterrent, they do make the odd occasional example out for people. And we have seen a bit of that recently, where it's happened with, repeat offenders, largely, those who've been maybe a bit contemptuous or a bit disobedient or haven't quite towed the line, might well be made a bit more of an example of than others. But generally, and because we're collecting the data, and we urge you to share your data with us too, it means that we can really build a solid and very accurate picture of what we can expect based on the historical knowledge that we've got. So that's collective power, and it really is powerful. And it really is, when you see as many people as this on a Zoom, proof that what we can do is really make some change together. And the more people who come forward, the more the state is in that sense of dilemma and has to do anything. And more than that, the more community we have together with our common values and principles, and the opportunity to be together and to live the future that we can expect. That's the, light and fluffy stuff, actually. Now you're going to move on to much more sort of factual bits and bobs with Lex around the legal consequences. And then I think what we can do after that is just touch on a few bits and bobs of the other things that we can offer to you, and some of the other sessions coming up that might be helpful. Lex.
Dora's just going to quickly come in and explain what the campaign was, in case anyone missed it, what we're actually here for. So just to Dora quickly, and then I'll tell you all the juicy stuff.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Gail, for explaining this background of zero resistance and what's the strategy behind the rest and why it works. I think it's really fascinating. And every time I hear it again, it just strengthens the will to engage in this campaign. So what we're doing in September, in case anyone just sort of joined to this session randomly, Animal Rebellion is going to disrupt dairy supply in the UK for 2 weeks. That means there is going to be no shelf on no milk on supermarket shelves for this period of time. So that's obviously going to create massive media attention. That's really going to bring this tension to the surface that already exists in the system around our broken food system, around the horrific conditions that farmers live in and have to face with the cost of living crisis and so on. So our demands are really concentrated on two main things. One, we demand the government to support farmers to transition to sustainable and just plant-based farming systems. And the other one is we know that through this, we are going to be able to free up a lot of land, and we demand that that land is rewilded. So that's the action. And I'm really, really thankful to you, Gail and Lex, for coming and helping us with the legal side and helping us understand how this really works. So passing it to you, Lex, to talk more about the legal side of this.
Great, thanks. So even though with a legal background, I'm not going to do the usual what a lawyer would do if they're invited to this space, because they kind of give you like a very flat reading of what our legislation says. But what Gail was referring to of us collecting data is that we've got a massive central database of what happens to activists and what the response is and what the outcomes are. And we've been there, like I was going to say holding their hand. They can walk, they can, go their own way. But, we've been there with them. We recorded what's happened. And yes, I will tell you, what the worst case scenario would be, but I'm not going to put the emphasis on that. I'm going to put the emphasis on what we've seen. So I'm not going to list a bunch of random pieces of legislation that technically the prosecution would go for. I'm going to pick the ones that you'll likely see and the ones that you'll likely be arrested with. And if your arrest leads to a charge, which again, it always does not do, most times it doesn't, let's face it. Because if they would charge every single Extinction Rebellion, Animal Rebellion, Insulate Britain, Just Stop Oil activist, they just couldn't do it. They're already struggling. So if your arrest leads to a charge, I'm going to talk about what those charges most likely are going to be. And then if that leads to a conviction, which again, a charge doesn't mean a conviction, I'm going to say, the worst case possible that the law has the limits. And then I'm going to just say what we've seen. And this is all based in data that we've collected. So I'm going to start off with aggravated trespass. Basically, it means that you're creating disruption or annoyance or fear or basically disrupting something lawful happening in a place. You will normally have to be asked to leave. And this would normally be done by, either security first and then the police. They do different versions of how they're gonna, how they arrest you for aggravated trespass. They might give you directions, and that's like a very specific way of them giving you like a final warning sort of a thing before arrest. And then if you don't move, they'll arrest you. The worst case penalty for aggravated trespass would be 3 months custodial and a £5,000 fine. For any custodial, which I'm going to say, there's the half-time rule. So when I say 3 months, divide it by 2, you'd only serve half of it. So it'd be 1.5 months. Custodial, sorry, I do keep saying all these terms. I need to remember that. Custodial means you're in custody, so a prison sentence. What Gail mentioned earlier, remand means that you're being held in custody before a trial. That's just what remand means. But those normally happen to repeat offenders. So what we've seen for Just Stop Oil, the highest fine, so no one's gotten a custodial sentence for aggravated trespass with Just Stop Oil. And the worst one was £1,130 fine, and this was for a non-UK resident, so they couldn't do anything else. Normally you'd get a lower fine and then maybe 20 or so hours of community service, and that's what we saw. Our average fine was £280 for aggravated trespass and about 20 or 25 hours of community service. So that's basically like working at a charity shop, litter picking, that sort of a thing. So that's what we've seen for aggravated trespass. And aggravated trespass is also a summary only charge offence. So it can only be heard in a magistrate's, which is the lowest of the courts. So you would usually have one district judge, you would have the prosecution, yourself, if you're self-repping, or then your defence team. And it's very, stripped back rooms, very small, and no jury in a magistrate's trial. Then criminal damage is another offence which you can face. And criminal damage, even though it sounds, a bit more kind of serious, but criminal damage, it doesn't have to be permanent damage. It can be smearing mud on a wall, sort of a thing. It can be chalk spray. It can be putting on a poster or gluing yourself. This is the kind of like the most common one where we see criminal damage come in. When you glue yourself, they're going to charge you for the removal of the glue, that like the glue residue that was there. So that's where we normally see criminal damage. Criminal damage is divided into 2 groups. Most likely what you would have is the under £5,000 damage. And that again is in the magistrates. So your maximum penalty for that is a £5,000 fine or this compensation order. And normally that's what it is. You have to pay back basically the removal of whatever it was. The maximum custodial penalty for that is 6 months. We've never seen anything like 6 months for criminal damage under 5K. The worst we have seen was with Insulet Britain, and that was 2 weeks custodial. And it was for chalk spray. And yeah, that chalk spray was on a court wall, so maybe that was a bit of an aggravation, but that was the highest that we've seen for criminal damage. The usual, our average for criminal damage is normally £150. Then we've got the criminal damage over 5k, and that one doesn't have a limit on the fine, because that is normally based on kind of what the damage was. And the custodial sentence, the maximum for that would be 10 years. We haven't actually seen this being used in that much in activism. The only cases that I can think of are the Extinction Rebellion breaking the glass. I can't tell you what the outcome is because they've been adjourned. So they've just been pushed back. So we're still waiting to hear what happens. But the good side of that is that if you do criminal damage over £5,000, you'll automatically have a jury deciding if you're guilty or not. Then we've got another offence, which is the offence of vagrancy, which is just a fun piece of legislation to read because it's from the 1800s, still being used. It refers to you being either a palm reader or a prostitute or a vagabond, and then you get charged for, that. It's got like little clauses that they use, like being in an enclosed premises or just kind of like being an idle person. Normally they go for the vagrancy one if they don't have enough to kind of make it an aggravated trespass. The penalties are very much similar. You can get 3 months custodial is the maximum, or then £1,000 fine. The highest we have seen is £200 fine for vagrancy, and no custodial sentences. Then we've got willful obstruction of a highway. Don't let the term highway kind of fool you there. It can be any sort of a path. It can be a walkway, a cycle path, the M25. It can be anything that the public can use to go to and fro. It can already be blocked for you to obstruct it and block it with your own body. So it doesn't have to actually be in use. It could have roadworks and you're blocking in front of the roadworks. That still counts as blocking or obstructing. This is what we most times see for pretty much any protest case. Extinction Rebellion had plenty of these, so did Insulet Britain. The maximum fine for this is £1,000 and 6 months custodial sentence. This 6 months is a new addition with the Policing Act. So I can't say what the outcome now is, but we haven't seen a big reaction from the judges that they would actually now apply these custodial sentences on willful obstruction. There are no published sentencing guidelines either, which is a bit sketchy, considering that this has already been in our law for a few months. But what we'd normally see is fines around £250 to £400 for willful obstruction. The lowest we've seen has been £50, and the highest we've seen, I believe, was £680. So that's kind of what we're dealing with there. Then we've got Section 12 and Section 14, very abstract sounding ones. These are often used in protest cases. They're basically, the police will apply a Section 12 or a Section 14 on an area which they want people be removed from. This is usually, for big assemblies that they see causing disruption. So they apply 1 or 2 of these sections, and then if you don't then move after this section has been put into place, they have the powers to arrest you. The maximum fine for this is £5,000, no custodial sentences. You can only get a custodial sentence if you encourage other people to join one of these unlawful protests, which has a Section 12 or Section 14 on it. Never seen anyone be done for that. Again, I don't know how they would prove that. So I wouldn't really be worried. That's just, again, something that they put into law, but it's almost impossible to actually have the evidence that someone has been encouraging someone to take part in a protest like that. So as I said, getting arrested, getting charged, and getting convicted, they're all quite far removed from each other. So if you get arrested, don't expect that every one of your arrests will lead to a charge. They might, but again, that's just something completely unpredictable. I'm going to say that there is power in numbers. The more there are, the less likely it will go into the whole process, just because of resources. So don't, that there is a chance that, your first arrest will lead to a charge and a conviction, but it doesn't happen all the time. I'm sure if you speak to a lot of more experienced rebels or activists, they'll say, oh, I've been arrested 12 times and I've been charged 3. That's like a usual amount. So yeah, that's kind of with all the criminal stuff. Then there is what Gail mentioned are these injunctions, which are normally private entities creating a claim and getting a court order ordering activists, or anyone really, but in this case activists, to stop doing something. So stop protesting at site X, near gates X, blah, 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 blah. There are higher penalties tied to injunctions. For you to be sentenced according to these penalties, you need to break the injunction that you're served or named in. So if you take action in the first time and there is no injunction, you can't be punished according to these penalties. The maximum penalty for these is 2 years custodial, unlimited fines, and the seizing of assets. Again, we haven't seen any of those. Now, the kind of like the biggest, like, shocking one that we've seen is 1 year custodial, which came to one of the HS2 protesters just not long ago, about three weeks ago. And they got, was it £3,000 in legal costs. So that was kind of like the most shocking one. From Insulet Britain, which was all about breaking injunctions, the most common one was a £5,000 legal cost fee, which many of them are paying off in installments. One of our good CASP teamers is paying his injunction cost of £5,000 off in £5 a month. So with quick maths, that's 83 years and no inflation added to that. So basically he's just winning. So there's those kind of little things that even when you are met either with a heavy hand by the judiciary or by the police, you cannot, with the right support and with the right people around you, you can kind of still create something at least a little bit better than what it first seems to be. I understand this might bring up like so many questions. So I just want to tell you, if you've never been arrested, we've got really, really detailed sessions every 2 Wednesdays. The next one is not tomorrow, but on the 24th at 6 p.m. We go through, your rights during arrest and the whole process and what it's like. And we've got testimonials and so on from people who've gotten arrested plenty of times. So if you haven't been arrested, please do come to one of those sessions. We'll put like a Zoom diary in here as well. So we'll you get to see all of those. We've also got Q&A sessions where you can like ask, your very personal questions or just something that, your family member wants to know. We've got those every Monday at 7 and then Fridays at 2:30 p.m. So those are our Q&A, very informal, bring a cuppa or, a beer, whatever you want, and have it with us and we can just chat away and check all of that. And then we've also got sessions for international people coming up. So all of this, what I've said, it does apply to international people, but the consequences further on can be different. The most, I think the biggest difference is that if you don't live in the UK, but you've come here to take part in actions, your fines are probably bigger because they see that you're not gonna, you can't do anything else. But that's pretty much me. I think, Gail, you then couch the rest of the support. You do it very well. So yeah, thank you, everyone.
Of course, thanks, Lex. I think, as Lex, and I can already see there's one or two in the chat, that it does raise questions. We completely appreciate that. I've posted in the chat there a document which has how to connect with us. You can call us 7 days a week. You can email us 24/7, and we'll respond as quickly as we can. We've got the sessions that Lex talked about. And in terms of anything to do with the arrest and the process for that, and remember that you are innocent until proven guilty. So until you have a conviction, you are not convicted of any crime, which is also important. Even if you're not planning to get arrested, it's really useful just to come along to the sessions so that at least you understand the rights of others. And where you can help, where you can monitor or observe or be aware of what's happening is also useful. So we do urge, there's no commitment to any of this. Everyone has their right to do their action or not in their own way. But we are keen to keep people as fully informed as possible. And the consequences regarding employment and so on, all covered in the arrest and knowing your rights session. Also important to say on that is that different professions have a different approach, and different crimes have different consequences. So it's a complicated answer, which is why we try and avoid going too much into individual circumstances at this stage. Because each criminal conviction that Laura might have spoken about, should it come to a conviction, and like she said, you can be arrested for anything. They just want to get you out of the way ultimately. Whether or not they have enough evidence beyond that to bring any kind of charge will remain to be seen. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes they bring a charge, and then sometimes they drop them when it comes to or before court. So anything really to some degree could happen, but you've heard the typical fines. We're not talking about custodial sentences here. We're talking about fines in the main, and you've got an idea of the average. But each of those, depending on what the Crown Prosecution Service might pick, actually has a time frame all its own in terms of how long it might stay on the record and the impact that it might have on an EBS check. So it's better to bring that kind of question with all your own personal scenario and situation to one of our support cafes where we can talk you through directly what that might mean for you. So I hope that that gives you what you need for now, some food for thought. Some knowledge as well that we are here. We cannot stress this enough. There's myself, there's Lex and a number of others, and we're all as lovely as Lex. We all try to be. Anyway, some of us fail. But we're all here for all of you, all of the time, throughout whatever happens. We can help with legal representation. We can help with legal aid. We can help with self-representation if you want to go down that route. We have sessions and trainings. If you really are in this, and some people at this stage already know, I just want to go and have my say and I want to tell it to the judge. If you want to do that, we can help you do that. We can help with most anything, and we can support you throughout the whole thing and beyond with emotional sessions as well, meditations, community activities, you know. Yeah, we can sit and knit together if you like. We don't mind. We're there for you however we can be. And if you've got feedback and thoughts on how we can do more, we're really, really keen to hear them. So thank you for your presence tonight and for your thinking about what you can do. I hope everybody's managed to click on that link. So you've got a record of our document If there's anything missing from there, and I'm aware that the Zoom calendar isn't published in there, but I'm hoping that it will be in the header of your chat. But reach out if you haven't got what you need. I'm going to pass back to Dora for a roundup, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Come back as many times as you like. Always good to see people again and again and again. You've heard a lot. It takes a lot to sink in. So if you need, just know where we are.
Thank you so much, Gail and Lex. It was super informative. And for anyone who came late and missed the first part, this is being recorded and it will be on the Animal Rebellion YouTube channel. And also, I'm just going to maybe repost this document that Gail mentioned into the chat. So this is the main guide that will have all the different links of all the different supports that Gail just mentioned, whether it is emotional support, the legal cafe, and just a bunch of other amazing stuff. So make sure to bookmark this document. And also after this session, you're going to receive an email that will also have the links to these support links and resources as well. So hopefully you will have everything that you need. And I think that's all. I just wanted to thank you again for all of you attending and making sure that you are well prepared for action. That's super important. And please feel free to also share the link to these documents and the link to the recording with your friends and family who are concerned and might have questions, because they can use these as well, just as much. Okay, and that's the end. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a wonderful day and see you on the streets.
Thanks all. Have a good evening.